start this off. So guys, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to stick around at the end of the podcast and answer any questions that I can see in the comments. But other than that, we're going to get started. So let's do this on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Hello to you all. Hope you're having a beautiful start, end, or whatever to the day, right? We're going to be talking in this short episode about how to actually get stronger without wrecking your form. Now, today, the reason I want to break this down is because this is a concept that gets thrown around a lot, but hardly anyone understands how to actually do it properly. We're talking about something which gym bros call progressive overload, but I think it's a term that you should probably get to know, progressive overload. We're going to talk about what it actually means and how to achieve progressive overload without it screwing up your form, and why it's just not about slapping more weight on the bar all the time. There is sometimes a better way to go about progressive overload. So let's talk about the mistake that I've been hearing a lot on our coaching calls, including this morning and last week. A bunch of you have been doing exactly what we suggest, what we encourage, and that is that you're focusing on strength development. You've stopped obsessing about the scale so much. You're lifting weights, you're chasing performance, you're building your metabolism, and that is critical. But here's where it goes wrong. You do a set of squats, and let's say you've been doing 40 kilograms and you're hitting your rep target and it feels like you're getting stronger. And then we're constantly telling you to progress, slowly progress. And then what you do is the next week, you bang it up from 40 kilos to 80 kilos and you think, time to level up. I'm going to increase the weight. And what happens? Your form just completely breaks down. You're on a squat. Your knees start to cave in. You get the wobbles, right? You're barely hitting any depth. So you're sitting there going to like this kind of 60-degree angle instead of getting down to the 90, even with your good mobility. And now maybe your back hurts. This is not ideal. So let's talk about what progressive overload actually means. Let's take the jargon out of it. Let's break it down. Progressive overload just means doing a little more than what you did last time. And that doesn't necessarily mean just more weight. It could mean weight, but it could also mean more repetitions. It could also mean more sets, more occasions that you're having a break and then doing it again. It could mean a slower tempo. So in other words, rather than, this is a big mistake that I see people make. They're kind of like, dude, slow down. Let's get those muscles under some tension. Maybe it's you're having a shorter rest time, or maybe just improving your progressive overload might actually mean just getting better technique. So it might mean you stay at the same weight, but you actually go deeper into a squat, depending on your mobility, for example. Maybe you just got more control. You do not have to go heavier every week. And in fact, most of you should not be going heavier every week. This is why big jumps in weight are a terrible strategy. So let me give you an analogy. Everyone will get this because we kind of understand running, right? And our incompetence in running. Imagine you've never run before and you decide, okay, I've never really been good at running. I'm going to take up running. So I'm going to start with a marathon. You'd gas out by like kilometer 4 or 5, right? Maximum. And you would hate your life. It's the same thing in the gym. If you're doubling your weight overnight, your body hasn't built the strength and the control and the stability to be able to handle that. So when you double the weight overnight that you lifted compared to the last session in an attempt to get strong, you're not progressing, you're just guessing. And if your form goes out the window, it doesn't matter how much weight's on the bar, you're kind of more so training your ego than your actual muscles. Do you see that? So let's maybe give a real world example with an exercise like squats that most people understand what a squat is, even if they're not very good at it. So let's say you're doing barbell squats and week 1, you do maybe 3 sets of 10 and you do 40 kilograms. Okay, 3 sets of 10, 40 kilograms. Well, on week 2, how could you progress this? What could you do? Week 1, 3 sets, 10 reps, 40 kilograms. Week 2, you could try the exact same weight. Don't increase the weight, but maybe try 3 sets at 11 repetitions. So add just one single rep. So if you're increasing the rep for the same amount of sets, but you're doing an extra repetition at the same weight, that's an attempt to get stronger. And if you can start to do that, you will get stronger. Maybe go for 3 sets of 12 on week 3. Now, after week 3, you might think to yourself, well, I've been doing 40 kilograms and I've been doing 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 11, 3 sets of 12. Now what I might do is bump it up by 2.5 kilos and then come back to the 10 repetition target that your program sets out. Does this make sense? So what we said is week 1, 3 sets of 10 at 40 kilos, 3 sets of 11 at 40 kilos, 3 sets of 12 at 40 kilos. We're then going to put some weight on, go up to 42.5 kilograms and aim for 3 sets of 10. So what we've done is increase the weights for the first the reps for the first 3 weeks, and then we've increased the weight. So in doing that, that is progressive overload. You're slowly building the reps or the load, not both at once. Here's the mistake that I've seen twice over the last 2 weeks from our clients is I'm doing 40 kilos, I put the weight up to 80 kilos, and I've gone from doing 10 repetitions to I can't even get out 3 repetitions. Of course you can't, because you just put it up by 100%. Does this make sense? Same with push-ups. Let's pretend that you can't do push-ups. How could you go about progressively overloading the push-up? Let's say like you're intermediate at push-ups. You can do a few, but how could you improve that? Well, you could start by doing incline push-ups because they're a little bit easier. You could do incline push-ups for 10 reps. You could then try the next week to get out 11 reps, maybe then get out 12 reps, and then maybe on week 4, start to lower the incline. Or maybe what you could do is slow down the decline into the what's called the eccentric part of the movement when you're lowering into the movement. So we're slowing it down. Then maybe you might move from an incline to flat ground. You're earning the next progression. Does this make sense? You're not jumping from 40 kilograms to 80 kilos or trying to go from 10 push-ups to 20 push-ups and wondering why you can't do it. That is not progressive overload. That is crazy. You're just not going to be able to do that. And you shouldn't feel bad as a consequence of not being able to do that. So why does this kind of mindset actually matter? Well, the best part I love about you guys trying to slowly increase or quickly increase your weight is that you stopping living and dying by the scales. So in and of itself, that's a great place to start. You're focusing on getting stronger. The reason that this mindset is critically important is when you stop saying, I feel fat today, and you start saying, I deadlifted 50 kilograms or I deadlifted 90 kilograms, that's a shift in your identity. You're going from shrinking yourself down as the predominant goal you have in life to growing your strength. That's an amazing anabolic goal in life. Now, even for you ladies that listen to the podcast, don't think like, oh, but that's not that important to me. It is goddamn important. When you think that women are a hell of a lot more likely to develop osteoporosis, to develop arthritis, to develop things like frozen shoulder and the like because of menopause. We have to be focusing on getting strong. And actually, in my opinion, if you're over 40, that should be the primary metric that you're looking for in your life, to get stronger. What will inadvertently happen, I will promise you this deep in my bones, is that if you get stronger, inadvertently, you will start to lose weight. When you start chasing strength, the byproduct of getting stronger is that you will build more muscle. And when you build more muscle, you will increase your metabolism. And when you increase your metabolism, your BMR goes up, meaning you're burning more calories on a Saturday night when you're sitting there on the couch watching the footy and having a beer, which means that you burn more fat. The problem is we start to chase the whole scales and wonder why we get consistently beaten down. So wrapping this podcast up, I love the fact that we have kind of made this little bit of a shift inside of Better Body Academy where we're talking about and putting more focus on strength. But there's a right way to develop strength, and that is slowly and consistently. You shouldn't be doubling your weights, your repetition overnight. It's got to be done incrementally, and that's why it's called progressive overload, meaning overloading the muscles progressively, slowly. It's not called overnight overload. Hopefully this episode has been helpful, Tim. If you've got any questions, you can pop them into the comments. Other than that, if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, you can find us on all of the players just by searching Better Body Academy podcast. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Okay, team, what is going on? Good morning. And we've got all of our Better Body Academy crew in here. Hello, ladies and gents. Hello, Instagram. I hope you're good. So any questions, guys? So do you want to ask anything? Did that help narrow it down a little bit? Maybe what I might do is just after this, now the podcast is finished, I can just go and explain the ways that you can get progressive overload again. Yes, you can add more weight progressively, not double your weight overnight. You can add more weight progressively. So for me, if I'm doing a 100 kilo squat, I don't then try to double it. I add on maybe 5 kilos, see how I go. If I can get over and get close to my rep range that I'm targeting, I might then add another 5 kilos. I don't go from 100 to 150. Does this make sense? So you could add more weight. You could add more reps. So if your program says 10, you could keep the weight the same, try to knock out 11, 12, or 13 over the next couple of weeks, and then lift the weight, dropping the reps back to 10 again. You could add an extra set. Generally speaking, if you're in our program, we would kind of like you to follow the program, because if you're adding more sets on your own basis, what ends up happening is you can go from having a 45-minute to an hour workout into an hour and a half workout, and that just becomes too much. You could slow down the repetitions. This one, guys, is an absolute game changer. Working side by side with a couple of our clients over the course of the last couple of weeks in the retreat, what we saw is people, like, I want you to ask yourself, do you do this? If you're listening on, do you do this? Let's just pretend you're doing a bench press. Do you press it up and then drop it back down to your chest? Press it up and then drop it back down to your chest. Even if you're using, say, a Smith machine, same thing. Drop it down to your chest. Do you do a squat and drive out of the bottom and then drop back in to the squat? If you're doing a leg extension or a chest press, do you grind it out at the top and then drop it back in? Guys, there's two parts to the movement. There is what's called the concentric or contraction part of the movement, where you're squeezing the muscle to get it up. That's typically the hard part of the movement. The second phase is the lowering part of the movement, right? The lowering part of the movement, if you slow that down, right down, it gives you massive extra benefit for the same amount of time. In other words, you've got to go down anyway, So just by slowing that down, slowing it down, I want you to try it, and you're going to find that it's going to zap you for a bit of extra energy. More weight, more reps, more sets, slower tempo. And then when you get a bit more advanced, you can do some things like shorten your rest periods, for example. More than anything, I would love for you to work on your having more control about the movement, right? Because what tends to happen is when you add too much weight, the form goes to shit. And when the form goes to shit, you kind of start doing body parts which you're not actually trying to target. And like we said in the podcast, you're just kind of training your ego. Okay, so team, if there is no more questions, I'm going to rip out of here. Again, hello, Timmy boy, you legend. Hopefully this has been helpful. Alex says definitely help. Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to love you and leave you. Peace out. Tim, see you on the coaching call in a few hours, brother.